Hello everyone, I'm a bit late and I'm sorry for that. I've been busy being sick and with the holidays, but regardless, Happy New Year and let's look into the changes. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot to see, so let's just start with what they stated about Switch X. It has been massively buffed, and what I personally interpreted from the update was that the fill rate of X attacks has been adjusted to be more easy and not be overly dependent on the spiral burst slash. At least I hope. Again, they didn't show much, but that's my take on.
I understand from feedback that some players thought it was too difficult to get the Axe mode charged up, and that was something that I wanted to alleviate, so that difficulty has been adjusted.
Sword mode is more powerful now, and I assume they buffed Switch X across the board, and not only sword mode, but together with the addition of hit stop, I'm sure our weapons will feel super powerful again. Coming to the counter rising slash, now I don't know if it's the offset rising slash in X mode or actually the counter in sword mode. The video that follows is of the sword mode counter, so I guess we're talking about that one, but I never felt it was difficult to use. It was simply too much tick damage, no raw counters were possible, but the time frame to actually counter was huge, but that is exactly what they took and implemented a perfect timing for the parry. The hunter takes full damage by the first fist slam. Now he counters it, but with bad timing, so he only gets a decent damage reduction and gets some switch gauge back, but on a perfect parry, we get a super satisfying sound and a visual effect. You take almost no damage, you regain switch gauge, and you build amp meter on the perfect parry and the two following hits. Absolutely perfect, and I'm very happy with this buff to the counter. If we can also counter raws now, there's nothing I'd change about it. You have a huge window to counter a monster, but you get rewarded very well if you time it correctly. Very nice. And on the second clip we see the full release in action, more damage, 2 hit stops throughout the animation and hyper armor. Now that's a finisher. Sadly, that was all they've shown, so let's summarize everything quickly and then I'll end with my personal thoughts on the changes. The damage of the weapon has been buffed for certain on every move in sword mode, and I guess also in X mode, to not make X mode too weak. Building switch gauge is now easier, or maybe we even have new ways or special properties upon entering sword mode to make it more rewarding. Hyper armor on full release slash and parameter improvements to various moves. Would have loved to know which moves and what improvements exactly, but I'll take it for now. They also stated that they heard some moves were too difficult to pull off, so I assume they also fixed the weird behavior with the wild swing. You're supposed to be able to perform the heavy slam from 2 wild swings, but the timing, depending on what side your wild swing starts, was just off. It simply didn't work sometimes, or the timing window was way too small. What do I think about this update and the changes? Well, I have questions. Like, what are the various adjustments and parameter improvements? We didn't get any new footage of Switch X on the newer build because players were supposed to not play the weapon because there are so many changes to it and so on. But looking at this community update, it's like, where changes? I'm happy with what they've shown for sure. Buffs everywhere and the counter change is also amazing, while not making it too overpowered that you can almost speedrun a monster just by counter spamming. But you can tell me that these changes are why people weren't allowed to play it on the more up-to-date build in the Scarlet Forest. I'm itching to get more news because I already started on my full guide on Switch X, and then they announced the changes and that people shouldn't play it right now. And on this community update they show the improved counter and the full release slash with hyper armor. And that's it. One other thing they said is that there's less recovery after a missed focus strike, which is also nice, but yeah, where are the changes? What does it look like now? Is it so differently now from what we've seen in the beta that nobody was allowed to play it? Or was it simply not done and nobody was supposed to play it? The only fear I have is that X mod will once again be obsolete, like in Sunbreak and also partially in Iceborne. If they only buffed sword mode and the switch gauge gain in X mode. Why even bother with X mode and power X mode? I love the idea of using X mode to power up sword mode, but the X has to be powerful as well and not feel like a downtime or punishment on the weapon until you get to use sword mode again. Iceborne did it so well. More part damage in X mode and hefty, powerful attacks and better movement. Now we have the counter in sword mode, so switching back to X mode for better maneuverability isn't so important anymore, since you can just counter. Especially now with the perfect parry that negates like 90% of the damage. Again, I love the counter and what they did to it, but X mode simply must retain a certain role and an active part of this weapon. But I also understand, of course, that this can be pretty difficult, so I'm still excited for more. I'm still gonna play nothing but Switch X, and I'm excited to discuss all this in the comments with you. And at least X mode still has the offset slash. Not long until Wilds releases, so happy hunting, guys.